So as you may already be aware, Blender 5.1 is now available. So as usual, we're going to take a quick casual read through the new features page. We do this every time, leave me running in the background if you like. We're going to have a little chat about it while we go. This time, the splash screen for the project is from the Blender Studio project Singularity, which I think they ended early. I can't quite remember, but if you click here, you'll be able to see that there's a section for it on the Blender Studio. If you're not aware, the Blender Studio is a place where you can subscribe to provide support for the studio, while also getting production files and information back. It's actually a lot of educational material on there that's worth having a look at if you're invested in learning Blender. As usual, they have released their own recap video, and what they tend to do is get help from other Blender YouTubers in explaining the features. So as usual, Jonathan Lampow from the CG Cookie group tends to help out with these. So if you like a more visual explanation, then you tend to get a bit more information, but in these videos, they do also leave out a few of the finer details. It's quite often the case that so many things are added to each update that it's hard to include everything everywhere all at once. So one of the more obvious things that people have been quite excited about is the new Raycast node in the shader editor. As it notes here, the new Raycast node allows you to cast rays against scene geometry, similar to the existing geometry nodes node, but now available for shaders in both Cycles and EEVEE. Enables a wide range of effects, including non-photorealistic rendering, stylization, integrated with scene shading. But with EEVEE, it's only limited to the screen space tracing. One thing to keep in mind when using like screen spaced effects, even if it's something like global illumination in EEVEE, is that you just got to be a bit careful with animation and camera positions and stuff. It's still very powerful though. And one of the demos that they're showing here is the X-ray demo provided by Cartesian Caramel, who we know as Ben here. This one grabbed a lot of attention. I was in a call with him last night and it was funny. He mentioned that when he shared this on social media, 2 people from the Blender dev team or Blender Studio simultaneously messaged him to see if they could get it added as a demo, which is quite funny. So you can download this. It's free. If you click on the link, it will take you down there. If you want to get here yourself under Blender, could go to download demo files, and then there's a subsection rendering. From there you can find the X-ray skeleton arm. Also, it looks like they've just added this one as well, Raycast lines. So that'd be a cool demo for stylization. I myself might look into that. Actually, there's so much I need to learn from these, but it's cool to have those files available. So EEVEE and Viewport, quick start. EEVEE materials now compile faster by pre-compiling GPU pipelines in parallel. Great. EEVEE shader compilation was always, not always, because EEVEE's had different steps over time, but shader compilation has been a problem for EEVEE. GPU shaders also compile more quickly across all platforms thanks to pre-processing of the shader sources. Now they provide some general comparison graphs here. These graphs are always a little bit limited in terms of information, but they're just supposed to give you like a general understanding. The gray is the previous version, Blender 5.0, and the colored is 5.1, so you get a sense of the proportional difference between them. As we can see, Vulkan in particular allows for a great improvement. Memory savings. Memory is getting expensive these days. Oh boy. So it might as well multitask. EEVEE now saves texture memory by overlapping frame buffer and render textures at different points within a frame. Lovely. Always appreciate performance improvements. There are more improvements in this regard. I don't always want to read everything out, but I'll read a few. You can control the light path intensity, better planar reflections, improved grid performance and occlusion, support for the light path node in the world, improved reference sphere handling and space lighting, and more. So animation, again, more performance improvements. Blender 5.1 delivers a major boost to animation playback performance. Specifically, shape keys. Shape key evaluation has seen a significant performance boost since 5.0, especially on high poly meshes. Actions now evaluate much faster now, especially on armatures with many bones keyed. And they've got, again, more proportional tests here, so you can compare the improvement. Smooth sailing. So there's a Gaussian version of a smooth method for F-curve modifiers. So when you've got your animation curves, you can smooth them out. It's the same operation as the smooth operator, but this time in a non-destructive way, so you can take it back and forth. Very cool. Be precise. When show subframes is enabled, decimal values for frames will be displayed in the playhead. User interface improvements, always welcome. You can quickly see the interpolation type between keyframes at a glance now. Also, they're color-coded, so constant, linear, and Bezier, and the easing modes have different colors respectively. So we can see here the easing looks blue, the constant is like an orangey color, linear is green, and Bezier just on its own is just a basic gray. Interpolation lines on the dope sheet are now colored to indicate their type, matching the theme colors used by the corresponding icons. And more animation nodes replace actions on multiple objects. New apply to basis applies the deformations of selected shape keys to the basis and then removes them. Loop selection is now possible in weight paint mode when using vertex selection. And for the Python API, the animation operation convert legacy action has been removed since all actions are automatically layered. So there's more information about the input-output or import-export for the OpenUSD, FBX, GLTF images and video and output. These will be a little bit too boring to read out, but I'm sure some people will find these very important. Some of them are new features, like with the FBX, export shape key normals when base normals are enabled, fixing some game engine import issues. Video encoding now allows for custom quality level by a manually specified FFmpeg CRF value, fixes for GLTF WGF. Under images, JPEG 2000, use multi-threading to speed up file saving, support for the AV1 image file format, and for OpenEXR, a new lossless encoding option, HTJ2K, all good to have. More stability. So they do this thing called winter of quality that they're mentioning here, which is where there's a dedicated phase for crunching down on the bugs in Blender to try and make things more stable. They said in this period, more than 350 reported issues were fixed. Additionally, developers worked on addressing technical debt as well as improving documentation. So this is just proof and representation that they do like to crunch down on the bugs. It's always interesting whenever we do updates like this. I mentioned the new features. There are comments that are like, oh, they shouldn't be adding things. They should be focusing on fixing the bugs. Well, these things aren't mutually exclusive. Both of these things can happen, so it's nice that they do these dedicated moments to work on stability alongside the more exciting features. Compositor Hard Sequencer. Unleash your creativity with node-based transition effects thanks to the new Sequencer Strip Info node. Interesting, so you can like customize transitions. A simple transition using the strip's start and end frames to control the size of an ellipse mask. Very cool. Simple yet powerful, this new node provides timing and transform data such as the frame range, position, rotation, and scale. Please note that Blender 5.1 computes sequencer compositor effects on the CPU. However, in the upcoming 5.2 long-term support version, they will run on the GPU. That's quite important to know. SDF, smoothed at form. So SDF stuff. There's a new mask to SDF node, that sounds very powerful, that lets you turn any image or shape into assigned distance fields. So this is effectively, I suppose, a way of just generating masks from your layers, which is very powerful. So that runs in the compositor. More compositor stuff. Mix node now properly mixes alpha. Relative to pixel now works with non-single values. New compositor workspace layout. If you use the default layouts, I tend to make my own. Group input up to 30% faster in some cases. Great. Glare, directional blur, lens distortion, anti-alias, blur, and vector blur are up to 2 times faster. Thank you again, more performance. Image and file output nodes now read-write custom metadata, so you're not losing custom data for the process. Group now performs implicit input-output conversions. File output allows specifying directories again. Improved movie distortion handle of image display window, and the viewer region has been temporarily hidden. What does that mean? The operator was never supported in the new compositor. Since 4.4, there are plans to reintroduce the feature. So for now, only the UI toggle and shortcuts are removed to avoid breaking changes. Okay, so that's an ongoing thing. Then there's a reminder for the extensions platform. The Blender extensions platform keeps growing with over 900 free add-ons and themes to customize your workflows. These are add-ons you can download from inside of Blender through the edit preferences. It's not the only way to get add-ons. Basically, there's the legacy version where you can install add-ons from a file, which is what you'll be using most of the time if you're downloading like purchased add-ons or similar types of packages from storefronts. The extensions one is for free add-ons and themes and potentially other things in the future, from what I've heard as well. Maybe it does support other things already. I need to take a look. They're slightly differently formatted. You need like manifests in the file to kind of provide some metadata for the add-on that's compatible with the platform. But it's a really good and convenient thing to have. So in regards to Cycles, Cycles is faster all over, which is great. It's my favorite rendering engine. Improved GPU rendering performance by up to 10% on various benchmark scenes. CPU rendering performance on Windows up to 20% faster. I don't do CPU rendering, but I know some people have to for their setups. And I know that some people have machines that are pretty much CPU exclusive. And that will especially be nice for people that are running very specific types of farms. For AMD GPUs, hardware ray tracing is now enabled by default through HIP-RT. So there's different like GPU acceleration options in Blender that you'll find through edit preferences system, was it? So that's where you'll be able to choose like CUDA, optics, HIP, and the open method. So depending on your GPU, there's always an option available. I say that there's not an option for every GPU, but for most modern GPUs, there should be something available in terms of hardware acceleration. Better custom normals. Cycles now uses per corner normals instead of splitting geometry, improving consistency with Blender and fixing sharp edge shading issues. Cool, quite a specific thing. Most people won't really be bumping into that, but that's good. Smoother denoising. Albedo and normal denoising passes now use smooth transitions instead of hard cutoffs, reducing artifacts in both the passes and the final denoised render. Thank you. Aligned views. Cycles render results and Blender overlays now line up better when moving the camera. I don't think I ever really noticed an issue with that, or ever I guess I just didn't really care about it, but that's cool. Not so normal maps. Normal map node now includes an option to apply the normal map to either the smooth undisplaced mesh or the displaced mesh. Interesting. So that will be interesting for me, I think, when doing full PBR workflow hex scatter work when we're doing our our triplanar height blending, normal correction, that kind of thing. Because a lot of those materials use things like adaptive subdivision to control the displacement on the mesh. Here's a reminder to give back to Blender. You can donate. I know a lot of people, when I did a recent video trying to encourage people to donate, said that they tend to do it or they want to do it on updates as a reward. So that seems very fair and sensible. One thing I'll say as well is, looking at values like this, how much value do you get out of Blender every year? Is it more than €5? I bet it's more than €5. If you can, you might as well throw them like a little treat, a little something as a thank you and to encourage them to keep producing more updates. So Grease Pencil, feeling good. Blender 5.1 overhauls the fill workflow, making it easier to use while adding support for holes and operators to assist with selection and editing. Previously, materials determined whether strokes and fills were used, and now you can decide as you draw. I love this because Blender is a surprisingly really competent 2D art tool, 2D 3D hybrid tool. In fact, I myself have used it for graphic design, like 2D graphic design, rather than other software sometimes, even though I'm not using like the full kind of 3D potential of Grease Pencil. Fills and holes. Because fills are defined per point, joining them can generate holes, similar to how curve objects behave when curves are nested inside each other. Two operators make this easy: join fills and separate fills. Cool. So again, I'm tempted to say it's almost becoming like a fully fledged like vector design tool. Not so primitives. The primitives drawing tool has also been updated to let you draw strokes, fill, or both. So you've got the options there in the top right as you're producing the primitives. Support all over the place. The new fills workflow is supported throughout Blender, from import and export to the internal operators familiar from working with curves and meshes. So basically there's parity across the software. Oh, trace image now creates holes when needed. Very cool. SVG importer, SVG exporter, and PDF exporter now handle fills with holes too. Very good. I might need to do some tests with that. Find what you're looking for. Dealing with too many layers, the move to layer menu now adds a search function. So brilliant. If you've got like tons of layers named all sorts of things, particularly if you've got like a naming convention, you can now just search when moving things to layer. Fantastic. There's a shout out to a video by Dante. Big Grease Pencil changes coming. I have not checked that out yet. I probably should. It's nice to see them feature community members in these updates. There's also performance improvements when drawing long strokes. Blender complies to the VFX Reference Platform 2026. There are updated libraries. There's not too much to say about this. It's more of a consideration for studios. Geometry nodes. Buongiorno. Meet Bone Info, a new node that provides geometry nodes access to armature bone transforms. Now that sounds powerful. Opening the door to rig-driven node setups and armature deformation. Lovely pudding demo here. The bone info node reads a bone from an armature and outputs its pose, local pose, transform pose, and rest length. Note, watch out for dependency cycles. They may occur if the node reads one bone while another bone in the same armature depends on this modified object through the geometry attribute constraint. So that's just a little gotcha to keep in mind. So there's text improvements as well. One of my friends sent me this because they were quite excited about it. Blender 5.1 improves text motion graphics with a better string to curves node and improved text and curve rendering. There's also a demo file here where you can download this effect, fully customizable animation using geometry nodes and the improved string to curves node. The string to curves node takes a leap in customization. You can see an obvious difference here between 5.0 and 5.1. Every input is now an adjustable field, including font. Notice there was no input before and now there is. So font is a brand new socket type in 5.1. Very interesting. I never really considered that being a socket type. That means you can swap them out, switch them on different conditions. I imagine you can do lots of things with that. The new word output gives you even more control to level up your motion graphics. You can see the word output there. So the volume grid system, this was very powerful and added in 5.0. It allowed for a whole world of new generative and mesh type effects in geometry nodes. The volume grid system introduced in 5.0 has been expanded further. So there are these new nodes: cube grid topology, clip grid, grid mean, grid median, grid to points, grid dilate and erode, and an improvement to set grid background. Again, this is something that will take some experimentation to understand. I need to spend a bit of time with it. So for nodes relating to UV mapping, the UV unwrap node now supports minimum stretch, slim, and a new no flip setting. And the pack UV islands node now has inputs to define a custom pack region. Very cool. So if you only want it to pack in a certain area of an overall UV map, then you can set the limits there. More geometry nodes, new get bundle item and store bundle item nodes. You know that the bundle system was added in the last version as well, or maybe before? No, it was the last one. New fill rule socket on the fill curve node. New matrix SVD, singular value decomposition node, search node warnings with Control F, mix color node now mixes alpha, node tools are now registered as operators, so that means that they should be discoverable through the search, I imagine. New font socket. We're getting closer to the end now, so you can download the splash screen as well if you want to play around with it. Again, these are fantastic learning resources because they're produced by the Blender Studio. We've already taken a look at some of the like animation type motion graphic capabilities that have been added to text, but there's just general text rendering improvements now, and I'm quite happy with this. 3D Text now uses a new fill algorithm that improves rendering, correctly handling modern fonts with overlapping outlines. This was always a problem. The previous system was not great for handling a lot of fonts. You can see here the overlaps, the holes, etc., but now it has been improved. This is the default for new objects, while the previous algorithm sweep line is still available for compatibility and performance. So this isn't going to break your previous projects if they use text. Okay, a modeling improvement now. Find your center. A highly requested feature, Snap to Face Center, has been added in Blender 5.1. It snaps the selection to the center point of the face under the mouse cursor. I never really thought about that. That's actually really cool. Like using a grid layout on an object, you could do all sorts of things for swapping things in and out. I imagine this would also allow for like decal placement really easily, depending on how you prepare your geometry. It's a cool idea. I didn't think about that before. What else have we got here? Set your limits. Loop and ring selection now support delimiters, giving you more control over where a selection stops. Cool. So edge ring selection can stop at seams or sharp edges and material boundaries. Material boundaries, that's very good. So it's basically a smarter loop selection system with filters to apply. Option to step over even-sided n-gons. Nice. Face loop selection can stop at seams, sharp edges and material boundaries as well. So I like that, especially for me, because in particular when I'm doing my like cycles lighting projects, parts of objects are light source materials, like emissive materials, and other parts are structural. So I might find that quite useful. Boundary loop selection can stop at inner corners, boundary vertices with more than 3 connected edges, or outer corners plus the existing n-gon stopping behavior. These options are available in the Adjust Last Operation panel after performing a selection. So that's the thing that pops up in the little corner of the 3D view when you're using an operation. What else have we got? I'm really happy to see more modeling improvements, by the way. There was a good stretch of time when Blender wasn't really getting any modeling improvements, at least not anything notable, and then I think in the more recent versions, things have started to ramp up a bit. A common workflow after mirroring an object is to apply its transforms, which can result in flipped normals. A new option now fixes the normals automatically and is enabled by default. Again, that's something I didn't really think about before, so it's good to see this being taken care of. Find corrective flipped normals in the Adjust Last Operator panel. So again, that's the same place as here. When you do an operation, it appears in like the bottom left of the 3D view. More modeling and UV changes. Greater than 35% faster exact booleans. Great, booleans being slow is always a pain in the A. Around 5 times faster filling concave n-gons. New select tile UV operator. Improved vertex slide adjustments. Lasso box circle selection in curves sculpt mode. Accurate freehand Bezier and grease pencil strokes. Curve fitting. And for the bevel, added snap and precision support. Cool, so that means snap, it will try and do the bevel attached to the grid unit scale, and shift will make it move much slower, much more finer. And in the UV editor, edge opacity overlay. So that would just be like a user experience visibility thing. Platform specific notes. On Windows, user fonts now show system fonts too. Cool, since there's a lot of fonts available. In the file browser, USB and cloud storage volumes now show corresponding icon, making them easier to distinguish. On macOS, added iCloud Drive support. They're actually doing quite a lot of system-specific stuff here, it seems. Improvements to cursors. On Mac as well, Command plus and minus can now be used to zoom in and out of the animation player. On Linux, client-side decoration support under Wayland. Better centered Blender icon. Little things, nice for Linux users. But wait, there's more. So as usual, like I said before, there's a whole bunch of other stuff that often gets missed out. And in some ways, or in some cases, some of the stuff hidden in here is sometimes more important than a lot of the features that have already been mentioned or highlighted. For example, in editors, under preferences, you can now search. Adds the ability to search within preferences. I'll tell you what, let's just take a look. I think I've got it open here. So preferences, search. So for example, if I wanted to look for the fly and walk settings, I could just type in walk and it would take me there. So that's really cool. Is there anything else that I should note here? Asset libraries can now be individually disabled. Interesting. Asset shelf thumbnail previews can be as small as 24 pixels. Asset browser now supports fuzzy search. So the searching should be a bit more lenient when searching for assets. On the normal map nodes, there's an option to switch from OpenGL to DirectX because the normal maps have slightly different convention, or they're like opposite directions. It's an easy thing to forget about. When it comes to undoing things, edit mesh and other undo is now up to 30% faster. What else do we have here? Sculpt improvements, boundary aware brushes like smooth relax are now correctly handle face strips. Python upgrades. I'm sure there are probably some breaking changes for add-ons as well. Once again, as I always say, if any of my add-ons are broken in this version, just let me know, but also be patient. And I think that is it. So there's general credits here at the end, list of developers, yada, yada, yada. I encourage you to support the Blender, as we mentioned earlier. I do support Blender. I'm on the gold tier, I think, which is, what is it? It's like 25 euros every month. I also support the Blender in other ways. Some of the community projects on Superhive provide a percentage to Blender. And then occasionally I'll do little one-off things, like the recent donation push. We raised a lot of money for Blender. I haven't done much of that before, like one-off donation pushes, but they asked me if I would help out with the last one, so I did, and it seemed to go pretty well. So maybe we'll do more of that in the future. So that's about it. I would show some of my own stuff here. You know, there's the Patreon and all that. We have our own system where my Patreon funds like free resources for people. One of the recent things was the Community Material Pack V5 update. So if you want some free materials to get your hands on and to learn from, you can watch that video. And to close this up, I would like to share one of the talents attached to my talent agency system. Basically, I'm running a little grassroots system where I'll try and find artists some work. Part of that involves sharing them. Before I show you that though, if you made it this far, let's do a heart-related emoji in the comments. That'll show me if you made it this far. So have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Today, I want to tell you about Albin Larsson, who also goes under the name of Voxel Visuals. Albin is a 3D artist who specializes in architectural visualization, particularly interior visualization, of which there is some incredible work I'd like to show you. This can be found on his website. One thing I really like about his work is that the renders are extremely clean, and they clearly demonstrate an intuition for how to balance bright and warm lighting with subtle accented material tones to compose believable and inviting scenes. It's actually harder than it sounds, particularly for people that are new to photorealism. So if you're looking for someone to help you with interior visualization, I would be extremely happy to recommend Albin, and if you do want to connect with him, there are a couple of ways you can do that. Firstly, you can contact him directly. Otherwise, you can fill out the form on my services page, and from there I will connect you together. If there is any other kind of work you need doing, then let me know, and I'll see if I can find you a suitable artist. Thank you, and have a great day.